Male entertainer, traditional country 15 over. From Michigan, Glen Cain.
Country no more. Here's my opinion of new country music. Whatever happened to the three chords and the truth? Steel guitars and no fancy rhinestone suits. You get integrated on the front porch of a general store. Our country isn't a country anymore.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rob's Inner Circle. I'm Robert DeLester, and I am the host, and we're broadcasting live worldwide. For all you country fans out there who are looking for a great show, you're at the right place because you're going to be well served. Our guest is really going to blow you out of your seats. I'd like to give a warm welcome and a warm thank you to our producer here in Rob's Inner Circle, Jenny Duhame, and to our podcast techie, Patty, Ladies Starlight Saragossa. A couple of announcements here. We want to go back and rememorate the birthdays that last week. Jenny Duhame, our producer, celebrated her birthday along with our Esther B., my co-host on Noon Hour Out of the Box, who celebrated last Saturday. And we want to give a huge thank you to the people at Gallonero Restaurant, to Johnny, and to the rest of the Gallonero family. And also present at that show was TikTok sensation Chef Fernando Renzo, who cooks up these amazing meals. And he is someone you want to follow. He's on TikTok. Maybe our good friend Esther, who's tuned in, is going to be able to give us his handle so people can tune in to his amazing cooking skills. We also want to congratulate our good friend Peter Costa, who was our host, not our host actually, our guest on the last Monday's Rob's Inner Circle. He made such an impression. It was such a great show. And all of his amazing sauces are available at CostaVeganFoods.com. Wow, the food was just excellent. And at the same time, I also want to take the opportunity to invite you this upcoming Friday, May 20th. I'm going to be again at Gallonero's with Esther Brzezinski co-hosting an event. It's going to be between 8 and 9 o'clock. The time is not determined yet. So you folks are welcome to tune in to us. We're going to be tuning live on Facebook. It's going to be a great show. Among the guests, we have Teresa Picciano, we have Charles Vaccaro, Claudio Silvio Capri, and another amazing comedian. It's going to be a great show. Be sure to watch Daily Struggles. It's the sitcom that everyone is talking about in the Rise Up TV channel on the Roku streaming service. Download the Roku app on all your smart devices or get the Roku stick at Amazon.ca for as little as $30. Make sure to watch all of the productions on the Bobby Short Shorts YouTube channel. You want to comment, share, click on the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for all of the episodes that are going to be coming out. Well, folks, it's that time once again. It's time to sit back, relax, kick up your feet on the edge of your desk. And if you're in a truck like our guest is, on the edge of your dash. We have a really great show for you folks tonight, like I just said. So without further ado, let us bring him on. He is an amazing country singer and a future Hall of Famer in West Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, USA's own sensation, Glen Cain. Glen, thank you so much for being on Rob's Inner Circle.
My pleasure, Rob. Pleasure to be here.
Wow, you actually get around here right now, folks. Glen is in his Peterbilt semi-trailer. He's pulled over in a what is it? A truck stop in Newberry, California. Is that it?
That's a rest area. Yeah.
It's a rest area. It doesn't get any better. We go get him anywhere. We'll get him at home. We'll get him on the road. We'll get him. Hey, maybe one day we'll probably get someone at 35,000 feet in the air in a plane. Who knows? So, Glenn, talk to us about your induction to the Hall of Fame, the West Virginia Hall of Fame. What's going on with that? Tell us all about what this is, what's happening with that.
Well, the West Virginia Music Hall of Fame is a Hall of Fame for anyone and everyone that has made some notable contribution to the field of music from the state of West Virginia. Current members are people like Little Jimmy Dickens, Hawkshaw Hawkins, Red Sovine, Kathy Mattea, just Brad Paisley. And I was nominated, went through the selection committee, and the nomination is now an official nomination, and I'm on the master list for hopefully the next class to go in. My own personal opinion was they finally ran out of people to put in there, so now I made it.
Well, on behalf of myself, Jenny and Patty, congratulations, Glenn, and a well-deserved nomination and induction to the Hall of Fame. Good for you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So one song that reminds me of West Virginia is John Denver's Take Me Home Country Road, which was released April 12th, 1971. That song has had a worldwide impact. So what impact has it had on you personally?
Well, I love the song. I do the song myself every chance I get, every opportunity I get. It put the state of West Virginia on the map. Everybody now knows about West Virginia. The watchword of the Tourist Commission now of the state is almost heaven, West Virginia. It's a beautiful song. They sing it every football game. Tremendous song, tremendous recognition for the state. Geographically, it's the most inaccurate song probably was ever written. Neither one of the features mentioned in the song, the Shenandoah River or the Blue Ridge Mountains, neither one are in the state of West Virginia. They're both in the state of Virginia. But the song itself has really put the state of West Virginia on the map.
There's a lot going on in West Virginia. There's a lot of new music coming from there, right? Especially in the country music scene these days, right?
It's a real home state for country music musicians. A lot of famous people have come out of West Virginia, or out of that whole area, really. West Virginia, Kentucky, part of Tennessee, that Appalachian area. It's a big musical area. Music has always been a big part of the culture of that area.
So how about Glen Campbell? How much of an influence has he been on you musically?
I like some of Glen Campbell's songs. I can't say that I was a huge Glen Campbell fan, but I liked some of Glen's music. He was a very talented musician. He was a tremendous guitar player.
I remember him with that beautiful acoustic guitar. He was playing, and I used to watch him on TV back in the late 70s. He was indeed a very talented musician. He wore those glasses, and if I remember, he looked a bit like John Lennon with those round glasses. Is my recollection right?
I personally don't remember Glen Campbell wearing glasses, but I know he played lead guitar for the Beach Boys for quite a while. He worked on a whole lot of recording sessions with a lot of different people. He's a very talented entertainer, but I only met him one time. And when I was working with Conway, we did a thing in Little Rock, Arkansas called Sons of Arkansas Day. And all the entertainers on the show had either grown up or been born in Arkansas. And of course, Conway was born in Friars Point, Mississippi, but grew up in Helena, Arkansas. And Glen Campbell was from Delight, Arkansas.
So you've been talking about Conway. That leads us into our next question. You worked with Conway Twitty, one of the international superstars in the country scene, the late Conway Twitty, God rest his soul. Tell us a little bit about how that all came about. How did you end up working with Conway Twitty?
Well, I actually met a couple of the guys that worked with Conway and worked in Conway's group, and got fortunate enough to get in with them and travel with them for quite a while. Learned an awful lot from Conway. Watching Conway, how to work an audience, how to write a song, stage presence. The man was one of the best I've ever seen. I mean, it's unfortunate that he left us as early as he did. I mean, Conway was only 59 when he passed away. Had a tremendous future ahead of him, but unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But until George Strait came along, he was the top-selling country entertainer in history. He'd had over 40 top #1 country records on the top 10. And that record stood until George Strait came along.
Wow. And you also served as a Green Beret in the U.S. Army. So in which time period did this take place?
That was in the right at the very end of the 60s, the very early part of the 70s.
Okay, so for those of you in the audience who don't know what a Green Beret, Glenn, can you tell the audience what a Green Beret is exactly?
Well, most of us would say a Green Beret is a hat because that's really what it is, but it's the United States Army Special Forces. They're a counterinsurgency, guerrilla warfare type unit, very similar to the Army Rangers, only their role is more of training indigenous forces. A Special Forces A-team, a 12-man Special Forces A-team has the capability of training 1,500 indigenous forces.
And which position did you hold when you left the Green Beret?
A detachment commander.
So that was a pretty high position. You worked very hard to get there. So let's go back to your childhood. You're originally, as you were saying, from West Virginia. Which part of West Virginia are you from exactly?
I grew up in the hills adjacent to the Kanawha River Valley, about halfway between the city of Charleston and the city of Point Pleasant in Putnam County, West Virginia. Went to Putnam County schools, went to the town of Buffalo, went to Buffalo Elementary School, Buffalo High School, then attended West Virginia University. My parents had a farm. I jokingly tell people that we raised a special breed of cattle in West Virginia because the hills were so steep. The calves were born with 2 legs shorter than the others, so when they stood up on the side of the hill, they'd be level. My job as a kid on the farm was to go out and make sure that when they stood up, the short legs were uphill, otherwise they'd fall off.
Oh, wow. Vivid memories.
Anybody that believes that, I've got this bridge in Brooklyn. Yeah.
So as you were growing up as a young man, a young boy in West Virginia, what were your aspirations? What were you thinking exactly? Did you want to be a football player, a baseball player, or did you have other things on your mind?
I loved football. I loved working the farm. I loved working cattle. I loved being a quote-unquote cowboy. But from the time I was about 9 years old, all I ever really wanted to do was be a country entertainer. My mother had one of those old-fashioned dressers in the bedroom. It had a big round mirror in the center of it. And we had a silver tone hi-fi that my dad had bought. And I would put 45 RPM records on there by Johnny Cash, Stonewall Jackson, Merle Haggard. And then I'd stand in front of that mirror with a hairbrush, pretending that hairbrush was a microphone. And I would hone my skills with a microphone and my stage presence in front of that mirror when I was 9 years old.
Well, you know what? We have a lot in common because when I was a kid, I was watching all of these Star Trek movies, science fiction shows like Mission Impossible, what have you. I'd be in front of the mirror actually imitating my heroes in the show. So it's a common phenomenon, put it that way. So talk to us about your most valued, your most vivid, valued memory in your childhood.
The freedom of growing up in the country. It's so much different growing up in the country as opposed to growing up in a town or growing up in a city. I mean, and the times were different. obviously. It was several years ago. But I'd get up in the mornings and I had my dog, and I'd leave the house and I'd go out and run in the woods, and I'd be gone all day, and nobody worried about me. Nobody was concerned about safety or anything like that. You just went out and you ran the hills with your dog and came home and made sure you got your chores done. It was just a much simpler, much better time, I think, than it is today. I don't know that I'd want to. I don't know that I'd want to be a young person trying to grow up today, to be honest with you.
So, when you were in the country growing up and you came into the city for the first times in your life, did you have a difficult time adapting to the city life compared to what it's like on the country life?
Well, the town, the hometown that I grew up adjacent to and was associated with, I don't think you'd really call it a city. I mean, both city limit signs were on the same post. If you blinked your eyes, you'd miss it. The whole population of the town was a little over 300 people, so you couldn't really call it a city. And we only went to the city when we had to. Go to Charleston if you really needed something big from the stores or something. You went to Charleston. So I didn't even run around much in Charleston until I was probably 16, 17 years old, and would start going to the city. So I really never had a city to fit into.
So right now you grew up in West Virginia, and right now you're based in Michigan.
I live in Michigan at the current time. I've been in Michigan for around 20 years.
And is there a huge difference in culture alone? Obviously, the biggest thing that's striking, of course, is the accent from West Virginia compared to the accent in Michigan. But besides the accent, what is the most striking thing in difference in culture between the two states?
Well, honestly, I live in northern Michigan. Lived for a while when I first went to Michigan down close to the Detroit area. I have relatives that live in Detroit. Michigan is almost like two different states. There's Detroit and then there's the rest of Michigan. Up in the area that I live, it's very countrified. Not a whole lot different than it was in West Virginia, except for the difference in the accent. A lot of great musicians in the area where I live. All the guys who play with me live in that area. It's not a whole lot different than what I grew up in West Virginia.
Well, the Michigan, especially the Detroit area, that's Motown country.
Motown, Detroit. Oh yeah, Detroit's definitely Motown. But you get on out into the northern part of Michigan, what have you, and it's country. Country music's a big thing up there. Almost all the little nightclubs, honky tonks, what have you, all have country music. Like I said, it's not really a whole lot of difference than what I grew up in West Virginia.
So when we see a Stetson hat, we think cowboys and wild, wild west. But there is a more contemporary movement happening right now. So what constitutes being a real cowboy?
Well, Conway had a song called "Don't Call Him a Cowboy Until You See Him Ride." Any good cowboy worth his salt can ride a horse. I mean, I've been riding horses since I was 3 years old. My granddad was a man who worked with horses, made his living with horses. He stuck me on the back of a horse when I was 3 years old. I learned to rope when I was probably about 6 or 7. Roped everything on the farm: the dog, the cat, the chicken, my little sister. Anything I could throw a loop over. And then later years, at one point in my life, I went brain dead and decided I was going to rodeo. And I figured the greatest thing about rodeo was probably bull riding, because it didn't require a lot of skill. You just had to hang on. And so I tried my hand at bull riding. I tell people I got a tie the first time I ever rode a bull. And they said, "How much money did you win?" And I said, "I didn't win any money at all." They said, "Thought you got a tie." And I said, "I did." And they said, "Well, you get money for the prize." I said, "I didn't get a prize. I got a tie. You got to ride that bull for 8 seconds." I figure I got 4 and the bull got 4.
And you know what, Glenn? If you'll pardon the pun, you don't horse around, do you?
No, I don't.
So we have a special, a big event here in Canada, notably in Calgary, the Calgary Stampede.
Calgary Stampede. Yep.
Is that an event that you've attended during the course of your life?
I've been to the Calgary Stampede. It's an amazing show. It's a fantastic rodeo. It's a huge celebration. I mean, it's a week-long partying and riding and rodeoing, and
because of the Calgary
it's right there with, you could get an argument on depending on which side of the border you're on and which one's the best, the Cheyenne Frontier Days or the Calgary Stampede. They're both amazing rodeos. They're both amazing shows, and a great deal of pride in both communities in those shows. Great deal of pride in Calgary in the Stampede. Great deal of pride in Cheyenne in the Frontier Days.
And there's people coming from all over the world to attend the event, which is amazing.
Yeah, the Stampede has the chuck wagon race, which is probably the wildest event ever in rodeo. But you've got to be certifiably psycho to get on the back of one of those chuck wagons and run that race.
Because, like you're saying, when you look at geographically the U.S. and Canada, the mountain range that stretches into Alberta, BC, and it goes into the United States, it's all the same mountain range. And like you were saying off air, the only thing that divides that mountain range is an imaginary line called north of the line Canada and south of the line USA. Otherwise, it's the same thing. And you're saying a lot of the culture resembles the other, right?
A lot of the culture is exactly the same, especially the western provinces of Canada, the western United States. There's not a lot of difference in the people in Alberta and the people in Montana. They're all country folk. They're all cowboys. They're all ranchers. They're all farmers. The cities are basically the same, whether you're in Billings, Montana, or you're in Calgary, Alberta. There's not a lot of difference. They're great neighbors to the north. We're their great neighbors to the south. There's not a whole lot of difference. But then there's not a whole lot of difference in people anywhere, really. I don't understand the divisiveness and the hatred and the animosity that we see in the world today. I just don't get it. We're all human beings. We all bleed red if you cut us. It doesn't matter. They're good and they're bad in everybody.
Exactly.
So I don't understand a lot of the things I see going on today.
It's unfortunate, but that's the way life is, Glenn. This reminds me of a friend of mine. I hope he's tuned in. If he's tuned in, maybe he can clarify this, but I remember this vaguely when he was telling me that there is a house that sits on the Canadian-American border, and if you're in the living room, you're in the USA. Cross over to the other side into the kitchen, you're in Canada. So that is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I can just imagine, who do you want to pay your taxes to, the U.S. or Canada?
I think it's the greatest of all worlds. When the U.S. tries to collect taxes, you tell them you're Canadian, and when the Canadians try to collect taxes, you tell them you're an American.
That's one way of getting away with it, huh?
Right.
Glenn, we want to present a very special song that you were awarded for. And tell us a little bit about the song, how it came about. I'm just going to start off things over here by saying that this goes back to the days when you were dating a beautiful girl back in college, and then something happened, and that led you to write the song. So what happened exactly with that girl in college?
Well, I met a young lady when I started my freshman year at West Virginia University, and we dated for over 3 years. We were engaged. We were supposed to get married, and I went back to school between my junior and senior year, football camp and what have you. Called her up and asked her if she'd like to go to a movie and dinner, and she said yes. And as we were coming out of the movie, she said, well, I'm glad we did this because there's something we really needed to talk about. Being the observant fellow that I am, I said, does it have anything to do with the fact that you're not wearing your engagement ring? And she said, well, yes. She says, I think maybe we should try seeing other people, one thing and another. So the long and the short of it is she married a heart surgeon. And I went back to the dorm that night and wrote the first verse and the chorus of a song called Hold Back the Dawn, which was a number 6 song on the New Music Weekly country charts.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to present that song right now as Glenn was singing it at an awards event. So, by the way, prepare your questions because Glenn is going to be obliged to answer you if you have anything to ask.
All right. Here's a little song I wrote more years ago and I care to think about. When the fiance in college dumped me, she got a heart surgeon and I got a top 10 song. All right.
Wow, what a touching song there, Glenn. So you hit number 6 with that song?
I hit number 6 with that song. But now there's an interesting side story to that song.
Go ahead.
When we were in Austin, Texas, recording the 5-song EP, we had laid down 4 songs. We had done Born to Ramble, which I wrote. And then we had done Country Just Ain't Country Anymore and Something Different. And the song that was actually the North American Country Music Association Song of the Year, You Don't Give a Damn. And the 5th song, we were actually going to do a duet with Paula Nelson and myself. And Paula had conflict schedules, and so we had to do a 5th song. And Matt Hubbard, the producer, said, does anybody have one? And everybody was digging through their books. And I said, well, I have one, but the problem is, I said, it's not finished. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I wrote a verse and a chorus when I was in college, but I've never finished the song. And he said, well, how does it go? And I sang the song for him, and he played through it on the piano. And as he was playing it, this thing popped in my head. And I said, when you get to the break, just keep playing. And he goes, why? And I said, well, I got an idea. Just keep playing. So he did. So I'm standing there and I go, well, all that you left me was your memory and a broken heart full of misery. I'll face tomorrow and I'll face it alone. Loving a memory and knowing you're gone. And he said, I thought you didn't have another verse. And I said, I don't. I just made that up. And he said, what? And I said, I just made that up. Maybe we can take it and make something out of it. And he says, my God, don't change anything. That's the second verse. And so we put it in, ran through it one time with the band, and we cut that song in 2 takes.
Unbelievable. Wow. Eh? Jeez. For those of you who have just tuned in, we have our show Country Great. Glen Cain was going to be inducted into Hall of Fame in West Virginia for country music, and he's pulled over in a truck stop in Newberry, California, in his semi-trailer, in his beautiful Peterbilt truck, white with a blue stripe on it. Glen, such a pleasure to have you on. This is really exciting, and our audience is really, really enjoying the show. We have some country music fans that have tuned in. And again, a reminder that you can go ahead and ask questions to Glen, because he's played with many, many people, including Waylon Jennings, who did the theme songs for the Dukes of Hazzard show. He's played with Conway Twitty, an array of country performers, and he's a very talented musician, and we're so glad to have him on our show this evening. Tell us, Glen, at which point did you decide that you wanted to take playing music to another level? You were playing at one point, amateur, and then you said, you know what, I'm enjoying this, I want to take this to another level. So when did that happen?
Well, it happened the first time back in the 70s and what have you. When I had a band when I was in college. I met a group of guys when I was on the campus of West Virginia University, and they had a band. They were looking for a vocalist, and the father of the lead guitar player had heard me sing with a little band downtown, and asked me if I'd like to come out and rehearse with them. And we started out, they were the Mischief Makers, and somewhere along the line it became Glen Cain and the Mischief Makers, and somewhere after that it became Glen Cain with the Mischief Makers. But we were probably one of the 2 most popular country cover bands in all of northern West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, that area. It led to me being a semi-regular on the WWVA Wheeling Jamboree. Was a regular on the old Mountaineer Opry out of Milton, West Virginia. But then, I got married. Everybody was just, you're married, you got to get a real job. I'm thinking, hey, I'm making pretty good money. What's the deal? But so I got entirely out of the music business, and I stayed out of it for many, many years, other than anytime I could talk a band into letting me get on stage with them and sing a couple of songs, because I never got it totally out of my blood. And then when Merle Haggard passed away, they had a tribute show for him on Sirius XM radio. And I called into the show with a couple of stories because I had opened a couple of shows for Merle. And ended up being reintroduced to Willie Nelson's daughter, Paula, who has a show on Sirius XM. And she asked me if I was still in the business, and we talked back and forth, and I convinced her I could sing by singing to her on the radio.
You still there? You still with us, Glen?
Yeah, hang on a minute.
Okay.
We are having a technical difficulty.
Please stand by. We're having a technical difficulty as Glen is broadcasting live inside his rig, a Peterbilt with his trailer, traveling, and he's in Newberry, California right now, pulled over in a truck stop just to be in our show. Wow, what a trooper. Thank you so much, Glen, for making this happen. So, Glen, are you okay? Do you hear us now?
I can hear you. I just can't get the little 3 dots to tap to bring me back on board.
Well, it's okay. As long as we have your voice, and I guess it's StreamYard, it buggers up a little bit, but eventually the image is going to come back. You should be okay. It should be freed up. You still good? So we're having technical difficulties, folks. That's Glen Cain, our guest this evening. He's a country singer who played it with. We can still see your picture, Glen, but we can hear you. Okay, so he's at the truck stop right now. There's probably a lot of activity going on. Okay, is he back? Glenn?
Yeah, I think I'm getting back. Hang on.
Okay, Glenn, we can hear you right now.
Well, that's good.
Okay, so you took part in a jamboree in West Virginia. Can you tell us all about your jamboree?
Well, the Wheeling Jamboree was WWVA was one of the 3 largest country radio shows in the United States at the time. It was of course, the Grand Ole Opry and the Louisiana Hayride out of Shreveport, Louisiana, and then the WWVA Wheeling Jamboree. That's where Brad Paisley got his start. Kenny Price, that was on Hee Haw, was a part of that show at one time, and
yeah, I remember watching Hee Haw. We also had on local television Grand Ole Opry, all these country shows.
Mm-hmm.
These are all shows that I guess you watched along with me.
Right.
For the audience members who don't know what a jamboree is, what is a jamboree?
Well, the jamboree was basically, it was just like the Grand Ole Opry. It was a country stage show. Was a live broadcast on radio. Jamboree is just a name that people applied to a group of musicians getting together and playing. A jamboree, hoedown, barn dance, all of those things are kind of synonymous with each other.
Okay, so you opened up for Waylon Jennings at some concerts, among many other big names. I want to ask you a particular question. The song that Waylon Jennings wrote for the show, The Dukes of Hazzard.
Mm-hmm.
So Glenn's coming on double over here. Glenn,
Somewhere.
okay, we can hear you, but we can't see you. I don't know if you can click on the camera to come back on the camera.
All right.
Okay, so anyways, at least we can hear you for the moment. What would you do differently if you were to rewrite the song with Waylon Jennings? The Dukes of Hazzard theme song.
For Waylon, what Waylon did with the show, I wouldn't do anything different. I mean, it was Waylon playing his guitar, and he had that line in there, always wondered why they're showing my hands and not my face on TV. On my case, I would probably rewrite it if I were doing it to say, I wonder why they always show my shoulders and chest instead of my face on TV, because they probably look better than my face.
So tell us about your work, because you were talking about Paula Nelson. So for those of you who don't know, Paula Nelson is country legends Willie Nelson's daughter, and you worked with her on a project. You did a song together. So that's exciting. Share that with us.
Well, Paula was the one who introduced me to the people in Austin.
Sorry, Jen, I missed that.
EP for me. The producer of the record is a boy named Matt Hubbard, and Paula introduced me to Matt, which was not real difficult to do because Matt is her nephew-in-law. He's married to Paula's niece, married to Willie's granddaughter.
Okay. Besides singing, do you play any instruments?
You give me $1, I'll play the jukebox.
Did you ever learn to play guitar or piano?
I've started to learn to play the guitar more times than I can tell you, and I just never have followed through with it. I keep threatening to do it, though. I just surround myself with really good musicians. If you show that video clip from the award show when we were doing Hold Back the Dawn, the boy on the bass guitar, who will be my lead guitar player, worked with Dolly Parton. The drummer used to work with Jerry Lee Lewis, and the fiddle player worked with Marty Raven and Shannon Noah.
So you have a pretty big star-studded lineup there. So,
Yep.
At one point, country was huge in Nashville, Tennessee, but the times are a changing. So, what happened exactly? All of a sudden,
Well,
you know,
back
when
in back in the 80s, when you had all the corporate takeovers in the United States, these corporations buying all of these large companies, they bought up all the record labels, and the old country producers like Chet Atkins was retired, Owen Bradley passed away, Fred Rhodes was out of it, Billy Sherrill, and they sent all these young New York and LA executives down to Nashville. And I think they thought they were being sent to Siberia. I'm sure they were asking questions like, can I buy a Starbucks latte down there? Do people really wear shoes? They got into town, and instead of embracing what had made Nashville for years and years and made it famous, they decided they were going to change it. They were going to modernize it. They were going to bring it into the 20th century. And they changed the sound of country music. That's why you have that great song by Alan Jackson and George Strait, Murder on Music Row. So
also
a lot of the mainstream country musicians left Nashville to record. This is the real story behind the outlaw movement. It wasn't a bunch of guys getting drunk and smoking dope or raising hell. It was guys who stood up and told everybody, we're going to do our music our way. If you don't want to do it our way here in Nashville, we'll go somewhere else and do it.
Glenn, we're having difficulty hearing you with the image and the sound. So we're going to break into another one of your songs over here and give the broadcast a chance to get you back in so we can have better picture and sound. So we're going to be playing another one of your songs. And after we play the song, you can comment on that. Ladies and gentlemen, you tuned in to Rob's Inner Circle. The guest tonight is Glen Cain. He is a sensation. He is a country singer. He's going to be inducted into West Virginia Hall of Fame. Wow, that's a great song. Tell us about that song, Glenn.
Well, which song did we do? Because I didn't hear it.
You couldn't hear it? Could you hear the song?
No, I didn't hear. I didn't hear the song. Which one did we play?
Oh my goodness. I'm not too sure the title, but I know the audience appreciated it. Yeah, okay, you had some technical issues. You were trying to get back in. Fortunately, you got back in. Maybe we could, okay, you know what? I'm just going to play the opening part of the song and then just to cue you. So stand by, folks. I'm just going to be playing this again so that Glenn has the title to the song. Stand by.
I'm still not hearing the song, Rod.
You can't hear the song?
No.
Okay, anyways, the audience appreciated the song. It's one of the 2 or 3 songs that you sent us. Hold Back the Dawn was the first one we played. And what's the other 2 that you sent us? Can you remember? It's okay. If you our producer
Could have been Country Isn't Country Anymore.
It's probably that one there. It sounds like it. So let's go back into the country music scene right now. Our own pride and joy from Canada, from Ontario, a beautiful woman by the name of Shania Twain comes into the country music scene and rocks the world. She was a sensation. She was a hit, very well appreciated in country. Then all of a sudden, she went more to the commercial sound. What happened with Shania Twain?
Well, I think what happened with Shania is what happened with a lot of artists who came up along those lines. They came in as traditional country artists, and then the record label changed them. The A&R people got them songs that were more modern, more rock sound, more contemporary, and got them away from traditional country music. And Shania let the record companies do that to her, or her manager did. Other artists resisted that. Alan Jackson, George Strait. They resisted that and stayed more traditional country. People like Willie, Waylon, Bobby Bear, Tom Paul and the Glazer Brothers, Chris Christopherson, they all left town and went to California or Texas to record, so they didn't have to put up with the Nashville deal. So that's basically what happened to Shania.
And unfortunately, she was criticized for the clothes she was wearing because it was not the traditional country wardrobe that an artist would sing. An artist would be wearing. Who is singing?
No, Shania's wardrobe was not what a lot of people would have considered it. Whoops. What a lot of people would have considered a traditional country artist, but she was.
Shania Twain was married to Robert John Mutt Lang, who also produced rock albums such as AC/DC rock albums. I don't know if they're still together today, but she was married to Rob back in the day. What's your appreciation for Garth Brooks in the modern country?
Well, Garth is kind of a mixture of traditional country and modern country. Garth does his own thing. He does his own show. He kind of marches to his own drummer and brings his own drum. A lot of Garth's music I like. But some of it I don't. But Garth's a very talented individual.
And there is a lot of groups out there that play country rock, and one of them is the Eagles with their hit Hotel California, Take It Easy, Lion Eyes. You were telling me before the broadcast that you really enjoy the Eagles as well.
The Eagles have a great sound. I love Eagles music. I love that album. They very talented people.
There's also rock bands such as Bon Jovi back in the day. They recorded a country album as well.
Yes, he did.
And that was a bit of a shocker at the time because you weren't expecting a rock band, a hard rock band like Bon Jovi, a pop band like that to come out with a country album. But it was a very interesting and very good album back in the day.
And it was.
So, Glenn, you're obviously having difficulties. There you go. Okay, we got a better picture of Glenn right now. Great. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, I keep bouncing in and out like a yo-yo.
Yeah, you know what? One thing is good. At least we can keep the audio going. So, at least that part of the show is great. But you're doing your best. You're pulled over in a truck stop right now. And, a little bit of a difficult condition. You're in your cab. It's probably warm in your cab. You got the air conditioning going there, don't you?
Pardon me?
You got your air conditioning going on, don't you?
Oh, I've got my air conditioning going. You bet.
I hope to God, because it must be really hot in California right now.
It's 101.
Oh my God! So it's hot enough. In 2019, an organization in Amsterdam published a list of the top 200 artists in radio play in Europe. You did very well on that list. Tell us about how well you did and where you were ranked on the list.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay. Back in 2019, an organization in Amsterdam published a list of the top 200 artists in radio play in Europe. Did you get that part? Yeah, and you were telling me that you did very well on that list. Where were you ranked?
Well, in September of 2019, there's a poll put out by a group of people in Amsterdam, Holland, of the top 200 country artists in all of Europe based on radio play. And in September of 2019, I was the 11th most popular of 200 artists. When I got that, I actually thought it was a joke. I asked somebody to confirm it for me because I'm looking down the list, and below my name were people like Keith Urban, Garth Brooks, George Strait, and I'm going, this can't be real.
That's unbelievable. And
didn't last long though. By the next month, those guys were well up ahead of me.
But it was a thrill in its own, to be ahead of these country singers. You're among the top 11. That's wow. That's really, really amazing. So before the pandemic, you were planning a big tour. Where was that tour going to take you?
I'm having a hard time hearing you now, Rob.
Okay. Before the pandemic, you were planning on going on a tour. Where were you heading?
Well, I'm with Big Records out of Vancouver, British Columbia. And they're working in super tours and festivals. In August, we're supposed to be down in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. Then I understand sometime in September, we're supposed to be in Texas. And I'm not sure what all else they're working on, to be honest with you. I'm supposed to have a conference with them on Wednesday night and discuss a lot of what we're going to be doing. Hopefully, we're going to be out working all summer.
You're also part owner of a pretty sizable trucking company. Tell us a little bit about the trucking company you're running right now.
I'm sorry?
You're also part owner of a trucking company. Tell us about your trucking company.
Well, the company, I own stock in the company. Makes me a part owner of the company. They're a company based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. They primarily haul office furniture from Grand Rapids out to all points of the United States. And then we run mostly refrigerated trailers, so we haul produce back.
That's a smart move. So in your sizable fleet, you got 145 semis and about 230 trailers. And your fleet is mainly comprised of PACCAR units. PACCAR units being Kenworth and Peterbilt. Is there a particular reason why you have chosen PACCAR over, let's say, Freightliner, Ford, Sterling?
Primarily they have a better trade-in value when you go to trade them back in. a lot of drivers' preference is to run pack car equipment. Drivers seem to like Peterbilt Kenworth. It's easier to get people to drive. And Carl, the primary owner of the trucking arm of the company, is a big fan of pack car.
And Peterbilts are the Cadillacs of the trucks on the road, as you were saying.
Pretty much so. Peterbilt's pretty much the top of the line.
Well, since you're in the trucking industry and you're a TV fan, there was a show back in the 70s called BJ and the Bear with that beautiful red and white rig with that trailer, that 18-wheeler. Is that the type of rig that you would want to drive?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up driving these things. I was driving when I was 14 years old on the farm, working for a friend of my mom and dad's, hauling the hay and hauling show horses. I worked in management for a while. I prefer driving a truck. If I have to work in something outside of music, I prefer driving a truck. I don't fit in real well with corporate politics. I'm just a old country boy, and if it's a duck, it's a duck. I don't care if it's a mallet, a magenta, or a canvasback. It's a duck.
I love trucks myself. I love transportation. I'm a highway bus driver, and 18-wheelers would be my next step if ever I was to get a license for another type of commercial vehicle. So have you been in festivals, something that compares to the size of Woodstock? Have you performed in something like that?
I was in some pretty good-sized shows traveling with Conway. Never worked anything as big as Woodstock. Woodstock was an event and a half. I mean, any given time at Woodstock, there is probably 100,000 people or more there. I mean, a couple of artists today have worked those kind of shows. I mean, George Strait worked a show not long ago with 100 and some thousand people in the audience, but nothing to compare with Woodstock. I mean, Woodstock was a massive party.
And that's something that's never going to be equal. Then producer Jen is saying that I'm a transportation nut, not to get me going. We can get into airplanes, Jen. Talk all about aviation. Are you? I guess you fly for your tours sometimes, don't you, Glenn?
Don't fly airplanes. I'll fly on them. I've jumped out of them, but I don't know how to fly.
Really? Okay, so it wouldn't be appropriate to ask you if you're afraid of flying because you jump out of them. Or you jump out of them because you're afraid of flying. Is that?
I jumped out of them because they paid me an extra $110 a month to do it.
Oh. Wow. Hey, my God, this show has gone by so fast. Tell us, Glenn, it's very difficult in the music business to break through. What advice do you have for anybody, any youngsters who are getting into the business? What is it exactly that they should be looking out for?
Find yourself. Be yourself. Don't be somebody else. If you're going to do somebody else's song, take it and make it your own. They already had Johnny Cash's. They've already had Merle Haggard. They've already had Conway Twitty's. So be yourself and hold on to your dream. Never let go of your dream. I mean, I got out of this business and I got back in it. And it gets in your blood. You can't get out of it. I mean, I get this thing with the success we're having now. It's like you're an overnight sensation. Yeah, I am, and it only took me 50 some years to get here. But if you got that dream, don't let go of it. Go after your dream. Don't give up on your dream.
Glenn, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here in Rob's Inner Circle. As mentioned before we went on the air, please stand by. We're going to be having our little jamboree right after the show when the lights are all out. So stick around, Glenn. We'll be getting right back to you.
It's been my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the exposure. appreciate what you do for us artists by having us out here and allowing people to see us.
It's a profound pleasure, Glenn. So stand by. We'll be getting to you in a second.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. That was a country music sensation. Glen Cain was coming to you live from inside his truck pulled over at a truck stop in Newberry, California. Wow, that's great. It's as great as it gets in our show over here. We get people from all over in their living rooms, in their trucks. Next thing you know, we'll be getting someone in an airplane at 35,000 feet. Just reminding you, this upcoming Wednesday at noon, Esther Brzezinski and I will be co-hosting our popular show, Noon Hour Out of the Box. We have another great show lined up for you this Wednesday. And you can watch the extended version of Noon Hour Out of the Box every Saturday on accessradio.ca. That's AXIS radio.ca. That's between noon and 3 p.m. Next week, we're going to be taking a little break, but we're going to be coming back the week after, and that is going to be May 30th. It's going to be a very special show. It's going to be the 100th episode of Rob's Inner Circle. That is a show like all of our shows that you don't want to miss. You got to be there, absolutely. We have something really special lined up. It's going to be really great. That's in 2 weeks and May 30th. A reminder, we will not be there next week. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to what was another exciting show. God bless, be good, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Ciao.